What's going on, everybody? This is Jose Betancourt, and I want to talk about the draft, the NFL draft, specifically the New York Giants. So the NFL 2022 NFL draft just finished, and the New York Giants had, for the first time in a very long time, two top 10 picks. And the hope was that the New York Giants wouldn't drop this. And very fortunately for New York Giants fans and the organization, they drafted Tavon Thibodeau and Evan Neal with picks 5 and 7. So, me myself, I was very excited because Evan Neal and Tavon Thibodeau at one point they were slated as the number one pick in the draft. Depending on what time period during the college season you were looking them up. So they did extremely well with the top two picks. You know, Sauce Gardner was taken by the Jets just before them. And there's been conversation as to whether the Giants would have taken Gardner or Thibodeau had he still been there. My opinion is that I don't really care. I don't care whether we would have had Gardner, right? We have Thibodeau. We have a pass rusher with some extremely gifted traits, the ability to potentially take over a game when the Giants need a pass rush. As a diehard Giants fan from the 80s, I was born in the 70s, got into football in the mid 80s, about 85 when the Bears took the Giants out of the playoffs, destroyed them actually, left them at zero. And so I grew up watching Lawrence Taylor, watching Carl Banks on the other side, watching Harry Carson, Pepper Johnson, Gary Reasons. Even later on, you had guys like Jesse Armstead, Corey Miller, Corey Widmer, who was an inside linebacker. I remember him being drafted. He was actually a defensive tackle and then converted into an inside linebacker. And we had, our fair share of really, really good linebackers after LT, Carl Banks, after they retired. Jesse Armstead was really the last great outside linebacker that the New York Giants had. It's been a while. And Jesse Armstead was selected like maybe the 10th, 12th round in that particular draft. Even though he had an amazing college season at Florida State. Was it Florida State or Miami? Yeah, I think Miami. And so having a pass rusher, an outside linebacker who was going to be playing in a 3-4 defense, having a kid like Tavon Thibodeau, who can possibly have an impact. Of course, I'm not going to compare him to Lawrence Taylor because Lawrence Taylor was he was a once in a lifetime defensive player. Like he transcended the position, right? Like now everybody wants the next Lawrence Taylor. And even Carl Banks was a great all around player. He can rush the passer, he can cover, he can take on tight ends. He was a technician, he was a great player, very intense. And then you had those great linebackers in the inside. So finally, we have ourselves a draft pick, an outside linebacker with the potential. He can go back and play zone. He can play the run, and he's going to dominate tight ends, and he's going to get around tackles. And he has that burst. That burst is very sickening when you see how he. And what I'm talking about is, let's say he's on top of a tackle to the point where he does his speed rush, and the tackle can try to push him past the quarterback. But what Thibodeau does, and I've noticed, is that he'll get around the tackle and then he has like this extra gear where he accelerates to the quarterback at an extreme rate with a lot of speed. And he generates huge hits. Now, whether he gets to the quarterback in time or he hits him right after he releases the ball, that's still effective in its own right. And he has that sick burst. It's unbelievable. I'm very happy with the Thibodeau pick. And then we have Evan Neal, who's number 7, who was drafted number 7. Big physical tackle, 6'7", has unbelievable quickness for his size, unbelievable athletic ability, period, for a man who is over 330 pounds and 6'7". So now we have Andrew Thomas on the left side, Evan Neal on the right side. We have to work on the interior, and we could have a legitimate offensive line that will generate a running game and protect the passer, whether it's Daniel Jones or whoever they decide to go with next season. So Daniel Jones has protection, and Saquon Barkley now has the ability to, well, hopefully he has an offensive line that's going to lock in their run blocks, not let people penetrate as soon as he gets the ball. We all know that Saquon Barkley, he's not the type to just hit the hole at full speed. He's going to juke and try to find the best route or find an opening. And sometimes he'll get caught in the backfield. And a lot of times, most of the time, as a matter of fact, it wasn't even his fault. He would somehow, some way, somehow, get tackled in the backfield as soon as he got the ball. But then you look at his backup running backs, it always seemed as if they hit the hole better than Saquon Barkley. There's a little bit of truth into it, but for some reason, maybe the running style actually benefited a poor offensive line in their running game. So Evan Neal is going to, knock on wood, along with Andrew Thomas, be our starting tackles for the next 5-6 years. As we know, anything can happen in the NFL. And we haven't. And, of course, I'm going to always not compare these draft picks to old players from a one-to-one standpoint, but compare scenarios. Like when the Giants drafted Jumbo Elliott and Eric Moore in the first round. Not as high as Evan Neal, but those two linemen became key components for the 1990 Super Bowl team. And then you look at the 86 Super Bowl team, it was a bunch of no-name guys who just gelled. They were on point. They were a freaking machine. And Joe Morris and Maurice Cawthon blocking for Joe Morris. The running game, the defense, is what won us that Super Bowl against the Broncos. So many Giants fans and, media types were very happy with day one. But then in the second round, they took Wan'Dale Robinson, who is about 5'8". It's funny, in his college tapes, he was listed as 5'11". But he's a wide receiver who has very similar skills to Kadarius Toney, meaning that he can take a screen pass and make people miss and gain about 20 yards at the drop of a dime. And he's pretty tough to tackle. So he reminds me of Kadarius Toney, but Kadarius Toney to me has that extra twitch and probably a little better speed. So having both of those guys on the field, is going to be fun to watch. And also with Sterling Shepard and most of the wide receivers for the New York Giants, there's a freaking injury history, right? That's that injury bug that hit them really hard last season. So having a young, healthy wide receiver in the draft is only beneficial to the New York Giants offense, and it shows what type of scheme they're going to run. They're going to have small guys giving a lot of big people some problems in the open field, and that's what you want. It's okay to have Kadarius Toney on one side, Sterling Shepard on another, and Wan'Dale Robinson somewhere either in the backfield or in the slot, because now defenses aren't going to know who the hell is going to catch a screen pass, a bubble screen, maybe a freaking reverse or something. Those elements are going to be there more than ever. It's something that we're not going to be accustomed to seeing when it comes to a New York Giants offense. And of course, people on social media that were really going crazy over the fact that Wan'Dale Robinson was drafted by the Giants and other people were there. And people get so enamored with names and they don't even know who these guys are. But if you look at, all you have to do is simply go to YouTube and type in Wan'Dale Robinson, and you'll see just how much of a talent this kid is. And his skill set, his talents are going to translate well in the NFL. And I believe in his coaching staff. I believe they're going to utilize him to the best of his abilities. Same thing with Kadarius Toney. There's no reason we can't have as many weapons on the field as possible. I don't get why people are so freaking angry. Then the Giants finally drafted an interior lineman in Joshua Ezeudu from North Carolina. He's about 6'4", a little over 300 and maybe 310, possibly. He's going to play offensive guard. And he's played tackle, and there were times where they showed videos of him switching over to tackle and guard in different points of a drive. Not just throughout the game, but let's say 2nd and 5, he switches over to left tackle. And then 3rd and 2, he shifts back into the inside. So that is very impressive. I didn't watch North Carolina football, college football, and from what I've seen and what I've listened to from the experts, because I'm no expert, by the way, and I'm not going to pretend that I've sat here and watched film of these guys like I see in a lot of YouTube videos where I see these, 15-year-old kids pretending they know more football than actual football minds and professionals. I'm not going to do that. So based on what I've heard from experts and, even Sean O'Hara talked about these guys, and even the Giants went to their pro dates. Ezeudu has quick feet. He's very nimble for a big man, very versatile, has some good strength, and he has potential to possibly be a starter at some point in the 2022 season. It's not like the Giants have a legitimate starting guard, whether that's, I believe on the right side we do. But the left side is still open. And we still have Shane Lemieux, who started during his rookie season, was better as a run blocker and a puller, but pass protection left a lot to be desired. So if Ezeudu is better at pass protection and more nimble than Shane Lemieux, which is very likely, we could possibly see him. So I don't think Max Garcia, maybe he might know the system a little better than Ezeudu. Obviously, he's a rookie. But there might be a chance where he jumps in there at some point and becomes the starting offensive lineman. And that is great. We haven't, we drafted Pert in the 3rd round as a tackle, showed some promise during his rookie season. Didn't have a great second year, and then unfortunately tore his tore a tendon in his knee, ACL, I believe. So we don't know when he's coming back. So we have an offensive guard that if he needed to in emergency situations, he could switch over to a tackle position. That is extremely rare to say that about a New York Giants draft. And he's very young, very, very athletic for his size, and a potential. The kid has a lot of potential to be something really good. Then in round 4, we have Cordell Flott from LSU, 6'1", but soaking wet, he's probably 180 pounds. So here's a kid who is, once again, really athletic, played in a competitive college, showed a lot of versatility as an inside corner slot, or slot corner, and then the ability to play outside. So he would probably, if he were to contribute this upcoming season, it would probably be as a slot corner. His slim build would be taken advantage of. I mean, you put him against CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is going to throw him around. It doesn't mean that because he's slim and he needs to add on weight that he's not tough or talented. He's actually both. But when you go up against these big receivers like A.J. Brown from Philadelphia now, and McLaurin, he's a tough wide receiver in his own right, you're going to need some size. because these guys are going to come at you and they're going to, they have some nice weight to them as well. And then, of course, you have some really good tight ends in the NFC East. So I like this pick. He might not play this season. Or better yet, let me not say that. He will most likely contribute in special teams. Whether he starts as a slot corner, that remains to be seen. The weight issue, he's only 20. So, of course, he's going to gain some weight and possibly grow as far as his stature. Just the fact that we have a very young, talented kid that can someday become a starting cornerback. That's great. Great value in the third round. He was the third round pick. So after Flott, we finally drafted a tight end, Daniel Bellinger from San Diego State, 6'5", 250 plus. And some say he reminds them of Kevin Boss, Kevin Boss wasn't a very athletic tight end, but for some reason he got open. He could block. He was a big dude, and he was very instrumental in the 2007 Super Bowl. So if we can get someone similar in production and hopefully someone who is very capable of providing big plays when we need it, if that's Bellinger, I'll take it. And he's a fourth-round pick, big guy. They say he's a good blocker and a very capable receiver, meaning that he's not going to drop a lot of passes. So we need that, especially after having Evan Ingram dropping big passes in the worst times and always being afraid when the ball was thrown his way. It would be nice for a change to have a very dependable tight end with good hands. So sticking with the fourth round, we selected safety Dane Belton from Iowa. 6'1", listed as 205. From watching his highlight reels and watching people talk about him, you saw a safety with good size and a lot of speed. And he looks like he's very smart, like he's very heady as a defender. And you even saw him playing against slot receivers, whether it was man-to-man or in zone. So he has some versatility that is going to come in very handy for this new defensive scheme. It's a very blitz-heavy scheme. You need safeties that are going to have the capability of covering, even slot receivers. So it seems like the Giants might have found a real surprising talent in Dane Belton, who can possibly come in 2022 and have legitimate playing time. He can see some very significant playing time on defense, not just special teams. So I like this pick. And so far, all the picks I've talked about, I really like. It shows what type of scheme the New York Giants are going to do or going to utilize. And I'm very excited about that. We have a lot of young talent with a lot of versatility. And then in round 5, you want to talk about versatile, Mika McFadden, linebacker out of Indiana, 6'1", 240. Looking at his tape, highlights and scouting reports, and wow, this kid can play. He can play. He reminds me of a very old school middle linebacker who can do a little bit of everything, but most importantly, he can tackle and he can read plays. He can read blocking schemes, shoot the gaps, and make the play. And that's what we need for the New York Giants. We need somebody with some size. Tate Crowder, he did the best he could last season. He led the team in tackles, but he wasn't necessarily good in taking on blocks. I mean, taking on offensive linemen, when you're 230 plus pounds, if Tate Crowder is that's a lot. So here we have a kid who is a little over 240 pounds and has the girth, has the power to take on these guards. Now, of course, most linebackers aren't going to necessarily plow through offensive guards. But if you have the technique and some power to fight off these blocks, you're going to make plays. So Mika McFadden, he's a kid. I can really see him giving Tay Crowder a run for his money for starting minutes. And that is great to even think about. So there was a surprise pick in the 5th round. And DJ Davidson, he's a defensive tackle out of Arizona State, 6'3", about 330 pounds. Now, the scouting report on him is that, big physical guy, has some movement, and he's a space eater, and he can anchor against double teams. So in Martindale defense, this defensive scheme, is a 3-4 scheme. So you're going to need a nose tackle who can take on double teams in order to have Blake Martinez, Tay Crowder or McFadden, or even Beaver, who I talk about later, Beavers. You're going to need somebody to occupy some blocks in order for these middle linebackers to make plays. So this is what DJ Davidson is supposed to provide. And off the top of my head, I can't remember the linebacker's name. Some people might remember. He came from Washington, played for the New York Giants, was a fan favorite, wore number 58. For some reason, I can't remember his name right now, but he was one of the coaches in Davidson's coaches in Arizona State. So he spoke highly of him. So we'll see. Right now we have Ellis as, basically the only nose tackle with some starting experience. So we need bodies at that nose tackle position. It's very important. It's a very important position. They might not make a lot of plays, but their duty is very specific. Their assignments are very specific. And if Davidson can come in and eat up some blocks, free up the linebackers, he's going to have a pretty long career in the NFL. And then we drafted another lineman from North Carolina. He was starting alongside Izudu, Marcus McKethan, 6'7", 340 pounds. That is huge for a guard. He may not fit the guard mode, but 6'7", he's the scouts say he's powerful, and when he locks his hands on you, that you're basically not going anywhere. So the thing is, is he as skilled athletically with his feet? Does he have good movement like Izudu? Now, they played together. They were both starting guards for North Carolina. And North Carolina had a very strong running game. So obviously Marcus McKethan had a lot to do with that. So we'll see how he translates, whether he comes in as a project. He's a 5th round pick. So he doesn't have all that pressure for him to come in and a la Evan Neal, where Evan Neal is expected to be our starting tackle, right tackle, or the New York Giants starting right tackle for 10 years. Marcus McKethan right now, he has to worry about making the team, but there's a lot of potential there. So if the coaching staff, hopefully, they can work these guys, and we can maybe in a few years have our starting right tackle. No, not right tackle, right guard. So imagine having, if everything works out great, we can have Andrew Thomas at left tackle, Izudu as our left guard, and then at center, that's still open because, maybe Shane Lemieux, he started working as a center. So maybe Shane Lemieux becomes our starting center down the line. And then imagine having McKethan as our right guard and then Evan Neal as our right tackle. So that's a big, strong offensive line with some agility. So that agility is going to come in handy when they're doing, screen passes and the guards have to pull or trap plays. We know that Thomas can do it, and we know that Evan Neal could do it. So let's see how these guards can. From all indications that Izudu is athletic enough to do all of that with no effort. So we'll see. We'll see if his partner in crime, Marcus McKethan, can somehow come in early and show that he belongs in the NFL and maybe even starting. I think we're okay at right guard. So we'll see. But one of my favorite picks is their last pick in the NFL, in the 2022 NFL draft, and that is Darian Beavers out of Cincinnati. And last year, in December 2021, I had posted that I posted draft Darian Beavers to the New York Giants, please. So I was really excited to see him drafted. I thought he would go a lot higher, but this kid he's a tough kid. Big, strong, physical, 6'4", about 240 pounds. He has an insane vertical jump. He actually played safety at one point. So he has some effectiveness covering. He has the ability to rush the passer from the outside, and he can fight you effectively inside as a linebacker. So he can come at you in different ways. He can cover, maybe cover a tight end, blitz, or be there for short run situations. Third and short, fourth and goal or something like that. So he's a very, and the thing about all of these picks, they were very instrumental pieces in their college program. So Darian Beavers, of course, you had Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati as well. So you could imagine that defense was kicking a lot of butt. And Darian Beavers was like the main butt kicker in that defense. So we might have gotten a surprise steal in that particular round. And I really don't like to look back at what other teams are doing. Like, a lot of people wanted Jacoby Dean. I wanted him for the New York Giants, but then he starts slipping, and then later on we found out it was due to injuries. But once you get over the excitement that he's still there in the third round, then you start thinking, where would Dean play? Does he fit a 3-4 linebacker scheme? Because he's a small guy in stature. He played great in college. But then again, he was surrounded by NFL talent on that defense. So on the starting defensive front alone, there was 3 first-round picks. And then next to him, he had his partner at linebacker was a first-round pick as well. So was Dean a product of his defense, or is he a legitimate talent? And I, of course, you hear these big names, and you hear he should have been picked at the first round, and then you see him dropping, and you're like, oh, the Giants got to take him. Giants got to take him. Well, Darian Beavers was the guy that I was really hoping the Giants would have taken, and I didn't even know he was still available. I had no idea that he was still available. I swore he would have been, with the Patriots or even the Ravens. They take these kind of players, and all of a sudden they're like, who the hell is that guy? He's all over the place, and that's Darian Beavers. We don't know, these picks, low-round picks, we get excited. Like me, I'm excited about this particular pick. Sometimes they don't pan out. Sometimes they don't. But when you have a kid who fits a scheme, like the one the New York Giants are going to play on defense, and you can rotate him in and out with McFadden or Tate Crowder, You even have Coughlin, who is a very similar type of player, but he doesn't have the coverage skills that Beavers has, or even McFadden. So these two kids, McFadden and Beavers, wow. Don't be surprised if you see them in some nickel packages, blitzing, or even covering tight ends. More slower tight ends, and having these two kids be physical with those tight ends. It's going to be very exciting. I'm really happy we drafted Darian Beavers, and it was crazy that in 2021 I said, Giants, please draft Darian Beavers, and here we go. So let's see if I was right. He may not be the kind of guy that gets big sack numbers or leads the league in tackles or something, but if he can just contribute, make stops when he needs to, tackle properly, take an offensive player out by playing good zone coverage. That's all we need him to do, and provide some pressure when he's blitzing. That's what we need, because we got Thibodeaux. We have Thibodeaux now as hopefully our alpha pass rusher. Ojulari on the other side, who had 8 sacks as a rookie. And then Leonard Williams, he had 11 sacks at one point, a few seasons ago. And then you have big, sexy Dexy, who has some very impressive movement skills for a person who is 340 pounds. So, man, I'm really excited because this front five, the front 5 of the New York Giants, well, actually it's the front 4, because I'm counting Thibodeaux, Ojulari, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, and I'm counting them as the front 4, because those are the 4 main, those are the talented players that we have in the front 4. And then, linebackers, inside linebackers, we have some questions, but some possible starters. We have Adoree Jackson, slated for 1 corner spot. And at safety, we have McKinley. And after that there are 2 open spots. Whether we keep James Bradbury or we trade him or let him go. We have Robinson, who showed some promise as a rookie last season. And then after that, it's open season. And in the other safety position, either strong or free, we have Love. But who else do we have? Maybe we convert one of the cornerbacks to a free safety and have McKinley play strong, or they interchange. But then again, that's where, the rookies come in. Maybe Flott can become a free safety for certain packages, or Belton can come in and become the starting strong safety. You never know. So the excitement is there. I'm really excited for this draft. I know there's a lot of critics, a lot of people who pretend to be experts. I'm no expert. I'm just a football fan, number one, and my team is the New York Giants. I've grown up with the New York Giants. I'm a huge fan. Diehard fan. I'm one of those who watches their horrible losses from the opening whistle to the closing whistle, because you don't get football all year round. The seasons come and go really quick. So I watched them even when they're having horrible games. So we have a lot of question marks, whether Daniel Jones is going to be our starting quarterback, whether Saquon Barkley can be healthy, and whether our wide receivers can be healthy. Galladay came in. I had a lot of freaking expectations. I was very excited about that signing. I thought he was going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. And then, all hell broke loose, I will give credit, though. There was one point during the first quarter of the season where the offense actually looked pretty good. And Daniel Jones was actually playing really good. Once he got knocked out, then you saw the effects of him constantly getting hit. And maybe that hit against the Cowboys really affected him more than than a lot of people assumed. So it's make or break year. Obviously, I'm stating I'm not I'm stating the obvious. Make or break year for Daniel Jones. So now he has some young, talented tackles. Hopefully, we can see an offensive game plan that doesn't put him in danger, where they make him throw 50-yard bombs, and having a kid like Robinson, Kadarius Toney, then you have Galladay, who is an outside wide receiver, and then Slayton. He's the guy that a lot of people don't talk about nowadays. He's a speedster. He can be a decoy or even Ross with their speed. And now you have two very shifty players in Robinson and Kadarius Toney who can take a short pass and gain 30 yards before you blink. And then you have the tough, jump ball specialist in Galladay who can run down the field 20 yards, 25 yards, and muscle the ball away from a defensive back. And hopefully we have some tight ends that are going to, play a role and be the safety valve for Daniel Jones. So if everyone stays healthy, that's been the biggest issue with the New York Giants is their key players have been hurt every freaking season. It's amazing. It's amazing how you have to. This year, I am going in with a blank slate, but during the freaking last 5 years, it was always in the back of my head was I had to include injuries as part of the upcoming season. So I'm hoping all that changes. I hope, after the way we treated Tom Coughlin, hopefully that bad juju is gone and we have a clean slate in the New York Giants. Hopefully we're heading in the right direction. We certainly got two cornerstone pieces in the 2020 draft in Thibodeau and Neal. That's something to build on. You have Andrew Thomas on the other side. You have what some people deemed as a generational talent in Saquon Barkley. And then Kadarius Toney is a unique weapon, and so is Robinson. And as we know, Galladay, he's a proven commodity. He just needs to stay healthy, and the quarterback play needs to improve. So there's potential for the New York Giants to score points. And if we have a defense that could actually rush the passer, not occasionally, but rush the passer and hit the quarterback when it is needed. That's been our biggest issue. That's why the Giants' defenses have always had a hard time getting off the field on third down. So we'll see. Maybe it seems like Bradbury is going to be cut or maybe traded. So we're going to have a young guy next to Adoree Jackson. And we're going to need a pass rush to help that young cornerback and possibly young starting safety until they start getting their feet wet and become the players that they're meant to be. So Robinson has a little more experience at cornerback from last season. But if we have Dane Belton starting as strong safety, that's two very young players in important positions. So we're going to need that pass rush to really get moving like right away. I'm very excited. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This has been my first attempt to really talk about the New York Giants and their draft class. I've been wanting to do this for many years. I've always been heavily involved with the draft. And at one point, I was ready to take that step into becoming a scout. I used to talk with scouts. And I remember back sending physical mail to every NFL team asking if I can intern as an NFL scout. The only team that answered me back was the New York Giants. And they told me that every position was filled, but to please keep trying. Don't give up on my dreams. Now I went back to learning, I learned how to build elevators. So, most likely made more money as an elevator technician than I would have as an NFL scout. But it's always been something I loved. The draft, football, and then, of course, the New York Giants. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section. Until next time, I am Jose Betancourt. You guys take care.